Westminster Hall, February 13th, 1788. The House of Commons, the House of Lords, members of the royal family, foreign dignitaries, historians, and socialites are packed into the Palace of Westminster. But they aren't here for a monumental vote, or a declaration of war, or even a coronation. They're here for an impeachment trial. The defendant is Warren Hastings, who until recently was the East India Company's top man in Bengal. He stands accused of a litany of crimes, including embezzlement, extortion, dueling his political rivals, and the illegal killing of a Maharaja. And leading the prosecution against Hastings is the so-called father of modern conservatism, Edmund Burke. Hastings' alleged crimes were so numerous that it took Burke a full 2 days to introduce and explain each of the charges. And the trial itself eventually required 148 days of meetings over the course of 7 years. Sounds excessive, right? Well, consider this. What was at stake wasn't just Warren's reputation, but rather the past, present, and future of the British Empire in India. Thanks so much to CuriosityStream for helping us tell today's historical tale. Thanks to the Diwani, the East India Company had become the de facto rulers of Bengal. And this change was so sudden and unexpected that it represented a real-time paradox for the people of India and Britain. In India, they described the event using the Persian word inquilab, which translates roughly to topsy-turvy or a surprising inversion of the existing order. As one Mughal poet put it, the revolution in Bengal left those who rode elephants as beggars in the streets, while it elevated the beggars into palaces. The British were equally caught off guard by these events. Most of Britain's attention in the 18th century had been focused on Europe and America, and now they turned around in 1765 to discover that the EIC, the company that was always on the verge of going bankrupt, now controlled a region with a higher population and landmass than Britain itself. And it's important to remember how the company gained this power. On its surface, the EIC was a trading company, but in reality, it had become a private security firm that operated a bit like the mafia. They built up their paid sepoy armies, sold protection to the highest local bidder, and when those customers couldn't pay, the EIC demanded, and usually got, taxation rights. "Why, good sir, what a fine and majestic subcontinental region you have here! 'Twould be a pity if something were to happen to it." Afterward, the EIC could use said taxes to build up their military power more and force their way into new territories, thus increasing their profits. And in the words of one EIC officer, the EIC eventually destroys every government that it seeks to protect. How's that for a paradox, huh?
Okay, so this is a paradox, I get that. But if it was an absurdity at the time, why didn't anyone do anything about it?
Oh, a lot of people tried, especially in India. As you know, there were the combined attempts by the Nawab of Bengal and the Mughal emperor that ended at Buxar. There was a series of wars between the EIC and the Maratha Confederacy in central India, and there were the wars between the EIC and the state of Mysore in the southwest, led by Tipu Sultan, who you can learn more about over in our Nebula original. But even though these native forces put up stiff resistance, they were eventually overcome by the EIC's disciplined sepoy armies and their local allies, who were often deep in the EIC's pockets. Now, a lot of people who study this history are constantly frustrated by the lack of unity between Indian states threatened by the EIC. Why didn't they just work together to stop the British? I mean, they possessed equal technology and vastly greater numbers after all. But the problem with this type of analysis is that it projects modern notions of nationalism on the past. There was no such thing as a united Indian nation at this time. Heck, even Britain barely qualified as a modern nation in the 18th century, especially with the Scots and Irish constantly looking to overthrow English rule. Another barrier of Indian resistance involved the EIC's behavior. When thinking about imperial takeover, we usually get caught up in images conjured from science fiction, where an obviously evil foreign entity, wearing all black and accompanied by some super scary marching music, mercilessly destroys a resistance. But successful empires are more insidious than that, requiring acceptance and cooperation from the ruled. And the key to the EIC's success in India involved finding and keeping said collaborators. But how'd they do this? Well, turns out the exact same way the Mughal Empire had over the previous centuries. They practiced indirect rule. You find regional leaders who are willing to make a deal, and then you leave them in control of their own fiefdoms in exchange for a substantial cut of the revenues. And if your collaborator ever gets out of line, you simply eliminate them and find a new local leader interested in the top spot. The EIC attempted, as much as possible, to maintain the illusion that they were just another regional power in India, just like the Maratha Confederacy or Mysore. They even worked to prop up the Mughal emperor in Delhi, not because they were worried about his strength, but because they wanted to maintain the idea that nothing in India had really changed. As one historian put it, the EIC became Indian rulers. They won power through Indian political processes, and their rule depended on the yield of Indian taxation levied through Indian administrative systems. The British succeeded because they didn't act like a foreign conqueror. Or to put it another and more dramatic way, the greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing the world he didn't exist. But who were these devils in control of the EIC on the ground in India? Well, that takes us right back to our defendant at the top of the episode, Warren Hastings. Hastings came from a broken home and found in India the opportunities for power and fortune that would have eluded him back in Britain. Beginning in 1750, at the age of 17, Hastings quickly worked his way up the EIC's corporate ladder, thanks to his skills as a bureaucrat, an accountant, a linguist, and most importantly, a survivor, who managed to overcome the high British mortality rate in India due to disease. His skills and immune system allowed Hastings to become the de facto EIC governor of Bengal in 1772, a position he would hold until 1785. There, Warren emphasized the principle of indirect rule. He attempted to mimic not only the methods of Mughal emperors, but also their culture. He elevated and befriended local leaders, and he personally managed diplomatic meetings in Urdu rather than using an interpreter. He also became a patron of local arts and culture. Unlike leaders in Britain, who were largely dismissive of Indian culture, Hastings believed that an appreciation of Indian civilization would be key to managing the empire. Though this policy of ruling like a Mughal didn't mean it was beneficial for everyone involved. Through these policies, Hastings and other company men in India, called nabobs, became fabulously wealthy as they funneled land revenues and kickbacks from local leaders into their own coffers. Meaning it was not at all uncommon for an EIC employee to send home 3 times his yearly salary from private trading and gifts from Indian leaders. And this exorbitant transferal of wealth caused a significant financial drain on India because the nabobs rarely invested these personal fortunes, again accrued almost completely from Indian taxes, back into India itself. You know, it's kind of like if an American-based company that specialized in 2-day shipping decided to invest its money in corporate space travel rather than worker wages. But you know, what do I know? I'm just a cartoon on the internet. Simultaneously, like any good mafioso, the nabobs showed a complete disregard for common Indians in pursuit of profit. They wanted their land revenues, or else. This caused local Indian collaborators to push ordinary cultivators to the breaking point, growing cash crops instead of food. A policy that led to a significant famine in 1770 that claimed the lives of an estimated 10 million people. This famine, along with the tales of corruption swirling around the EIC, led the British government to examine the company's work, and in particular, the poster boy for the nabob era, Warren Hastings. And while Hastings himself was eventually acquitted on all charges, the damage to the company's profile caused by the impeachment trial itself was severe. So, under the East India Company Act of 1784, the operations of the EIC were brought under the direct supervision of the British government. The EIC remained nominally in charge, but the days of unfettered corruption had come to an end.
Okay, now with the evil EIC out of the picture, the common cultivator is saved and they all lived happily ever after. Right?
Oh, Army, you sweet summer sofa. Not even close. Things are about to get much, much worse. But you know, that's next week's Doom and Gloom. And right now, in the spirit of my hoping it's a Bones Day today, I want to talk about something that's been getting better. Watching all of my favorite educational creators over on Nebula. Nebula is our by creators for creators streaming service, featuring original content from some of our favorite educational entertainers on the internet, such as Joe Scott, Real Science, and Wendover Productions. Plus, it's home to not only a ton of our shows all ad-free, plus a few of our exclusive Nebula originals, but I'm also super psyched to announce that my erroneously titled podcast, The Only Podcast About Movies, is now on Nebula as well, where every week you can listen to me and my co-host Shahir Dowd investigate the conversation cinema can start and totally not yell at each other a bunch along the way. No! Seriously, it gets heated, it's pretty fun. And because CuriosityStream loves us independent educational creators, they've teamed up with us over at Nebula, so we can offer you a pretty amazing 2-for-1 deal. When you sign up for CuriosityStream using our link in the description, you'll get a matching Nebula subscription for free. Now, for the uninitiated, CuriosityStream is an online learning platform where you can watch thousands of amazing documentaries and award-winning original series. And since my brain has been mired in historical paradoxes these days, their documentary series, Royals Keeping the Crown, recently caught my eye, where they take a look into the rise and fall of British royalty in the 20th century through archived footage juiced with some super effective colorization techniques. So head on over to curiositystream.com/extra credits right now to get both of these phenomenal streaming services for only $14.97 for an entire year. Not only is that 26% off the regular price, but again, that's under $15 for an entire year, which still totally just blows my mind. And when you do, not only will you get to watch some of the best content the internet has to offer, but you'll also be helping out our channel in the process. And we're so thankful for your support. That's right, Zoe. Ahmed Ziad Turk, Alicia Bramble, Casey Mustia, Dominic Valenciana, Joseph Blame, Kyle Murgatroyd, and O'Reels1 are fantastic legendary patrons.